And we like, great. Nice to see everyone. I'm not very sure there are a lot of people, but that's okay. It's good to be using such mediums, especially in a time when I'm not very outsy, but always good to connect. Don't see much people, but let's go ahead. We'll have a quick conversation, or whatever people call as quick convos. So, how's it been going? I know it's perhaps the end of 2022. We're sitting on 5th of December. That's like 25 days, 26 rather, 26 days to the new year, and of course, 20 days to Christmas. Equally exciting for a lot of people. Having said that, there are a lot of things to look into. Of course, 2022 has been extremely busy for a lot of people, myself inclusive. There are a lot of things that have happened across. Of course, the year did start with some crazy news. You all know what I'm talking about. But then we don't really have to go into the geopolitical titles, but of course, lot of other things as well. Well, as we speak, of course, we're into round 16 of the Football World Cup. Of course, the much famed one that is happening for the first time in an Arab country, and of course, having broken the schedule of a summer games to an actual December or winter games. It's actually proven to be very good. We've actually seen a lot of people, especially I have a lot of friends based out of Doha, Qatar, so definitely know that they're enjoying it. Of course, whatever we see online, there's been a lot of positivity. Of course, these there have been bouts of negative news here and there, but we try to shun that away. We try to look at all the positives and, of course, the cultural amalgamation that really happens. So that's an important part that we have to look into. Uh, what else? So a lot of great movies, of course. Not been very up to date in terms of Hollywood, but I think one of the biggest takeaways of, or probably from a cinematic experience, a lot of people have actually appreciated, if I can say, or really adopted in inverted commas, if I can say that. So they've adopted regional cinema. I think regional cinema was always there. Let's be very clear, it was always there. It was only that people had those blinds in front of them. They were looking for only content that they were able to decipher without actually looking into the subtitles. So that's one part. The good part here is that, of course, not every movie made in regional cinema is probably the greatest or is probably the best in terms of screenplay, direction, etc. But it, of course, helps you explore or get into a very different cinematic verse where, of course, you see and connect with a lot of new actors, actresses, or rather, I think the word's actors these days. So you connect with a lot of actors who are not necessarily speaking your type of language, but of course, their dialect delivery is something that is enticing you. So that's a good thing. Number two, you diversify into different languages. I think that's an important aspect. And by regional cinema, I mean, of course, I should not be using that term very loosely. By regional cinema, I mean a lot of cinema in the south of India. That's, of course, there are a lot of languages there as well. Thankfully, I do understand three out of four, or in a certain extent, four out of four of those languages. So it becomes easy to connect with that, of course, and you have subtitles to assist you. So nothing better than that. Let's also talk about a lot of Marathi cinema that's been coming out of the stables, and of course, there are a lot of Marathi OTTs, also a lot of regional OTTs that have come up, sprung up rather. They've become extremely uh, eye catchy, and of course, I think the focus around is mostly extremely well done story writing. I think story writing is getting its due, and of course, screenplay to a certain extent where people are connecting back with their roots. Speaking about connecting back with your roots, I've also seen some amazing ways of how do I put it? So it's basically, I think I'm using the word basically too much. So just be very honest. So there are some situations where a lot of rustic food or a lot of recipes that were lost over so many years are back into menus across a lot of restaurants. So, I mean, I can see that probably, let's call that a blast of new recipes seen on Zomato, at least Zomato, Swiggy's. So a lot of people are using the filter healthy, organic, etc., to select food that actually has been shunned for a lot of years, or probably has been in the back burner for a lot of years, and it's good to see actually. I mean, because let me give you a small example. So something like podi choru. I mean, something it's a small meal wrapped. It's a small meal wrapped in a banana leaf, extremely flavorful. Of course, you can borderline orgasmic, and people actually purchasing that in huge numbers, especially during a lot of festivals. And I think I've seen a huge spike somewhere in the latter half of this year. So people are really taking up to recipes that were lost or probably weren't really given their due over the past so many years, and a lot of people taking that up. I've also seen a lot of, let me speak very specifically about a place known as Wada culture. So it's it's food that is very close to the coastal lands of Maharashtra, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying. At least whenever I've had it, it's a bit spicy to my extent, but of course flavorful nevertheless. No doubt about that. And what else? So scenarios in life. Well, we've gone through multiple situations or situational elements over the past year, 11 months, if I were to put a number to that. Uh, you have seen people being downright, or rather, abhorring things downright. There have been some people who have accepted a lot of things. There have been countries, rather, there have been countries that have that are playing their own mind games. There are people who seem to be very caged in their thoughts, but unable to actually accept a lot of other things. There are regular things which continue to happen, which is, of course, we're talking about xenophobia. We're talking about certain racist comments that keep happening. But of course, there are things that these are things which are beyond our control, but are the controllables that are necessary for our thriving societies to coexist. From a standpoint, of course, haven't been doing a lot of traveling, but of course, whenever I have traveled, uh, good part here is that a lot of your airports these days, and I mean a lot of them. I mean, I've been to at least 5 to 6 transits inclusive. Yes, so you now have some very good airports. Uh, Maybe not world class, but at least the services are good. You see people being managed decently, but of course, it does help, and I stress on that. It does help that you reach airports at least 3 to 4 hours in advance. I know that it's sometimes very tough, but then when you're traveling, and I say that with all honesty, when you're traveling, these are certain sacrifices that you have to indulge yourself in because there's no way out. It's always also because a lot of people, and I've generally seen this, that whenever you seem to travel, when you seem to sort of set up an itinerary that hopefully you're able to achieve or complete, that is when a lot of people are actually traveling. So Uh, a lot of luck involved. A lot of yes, yes. Let me be very honest. A lot of luck involved there. A lot of luck also involved when you actually book tickets online. I think timings are crucial. There is no two ways about it. Furthermore, oh yeah, so I probably complete that. So the airports have improved. Of course, the amenities are have really spiked up in certain areas, and there are some which sort of maintain that median situation. But of course, with scope of improvement every single time that I visit them. Let me speak about the city of Indore, of course. So sixth time the cleanest city in India, which is I think that's awesome look at when you look at scenarios in the late, probably early 90s to the late 90s to even the early 2000s. I mean, things were tough, and this is a discussion I have taken up with a lot of people who have been in central India during that particular phase. And those days were crazy. No two ways about it. Those are the days when I think. Oh, let me flip that out. So those were the nights when we actually when when the lights used to go off and you never really knew when it would be back, because and no matter how much you thought about it, it was a challenge. And it's good to see that, and of course these are it's an extremely important thing that you have to take note of, is that when you have a central body which is totally customer centric and never fails to ensure that excellence and consistency is key, you are bound to see results. You are bound to see changes. Of course, that change is not something that which will be visible in a year or so. It takes time, especially in a country as large as ours, demographics wise. And of course, you are looking at managing people who they are actually. So that's a good part. And congratulations to whoever is actually working towards this. Of course, there are a lot of collectors, there are a lot of people in the government, central government rather, who are working towards this. And of course, there is a push from from the state and central government. Sorry, I think I misspelled that. So what I really meant is that there are a lot of people in the state government who are committed. There are a lot of people in the central government who are pushing states to ensure that a lot of pillars that keep these states, the state machinery running, like, for example, tourism, it could be economics, it could be roadways, waterways. All of these are churning very well. All of these have their own AMCs to be looking into, and uh, which is really helping this machinery oil itself very well and ensure there is consistency in whatever services provided, and everyone sort of receives those services in the best possible manner. Having said that, there are a lot of other things too. There are people's egos or people management that is key. There are a lot of learnings that one has to look into. Of course, these learnings not necessarily have to be something that you have read in books. These are things which you also read online these days. Of course, I will focus on the good aspects of the internet, where learning, podcasting, and audio casts, etc., are extremely important, and they sort of give you a leeway into getting or receiving insights from people who have actually taken the plunge much before you, and have actually sort of set a base where your learning can be enhanced by actually sitting through a 30 to 40-minute segment. So that's the best part of actually learning on the go, is what they call it. Yes, but I'd actually say learning on the fly, or actually anytime learning, always on learning. A lot of these terms are used. It's a good part. Of course, there are people who have myopic views. That is something that none of us can look into. But we always live with hope that those myopic views can be sort of. It's actually like a cataract, to be very honest. It is a cataract which sort of blurs your vision, and it's necessary to treat it right away before actually before it actually ends up eating into your mind and blurring your vision as well. So that is something that you have to look into. There's no doubt about that. And of course, the idea of actually or rather the idea of consistently learning could involve, like I said, podcasts. It could involve online learning sessions, etc. Maybe you need a goal. Very easy for you to say that. Very easy for me to say that. That you have to set goals, but then along with that goal, just give me a minute. Along with that goal, you also need intent. And by intent, I mean along with intent, a lot of drive. I think drive is essential, and a little bit of fear. I think a little bit of fear is very important. That is the only way you sort of kick yourself in the back and hope that pain actually hits your brain all the way on the top. So that is that. There is a lot to say too. But then when I collate my thoughts, probably in the next discussion, I hope to be speaking a bit more on the current things, the current latest and greatest, and all that is happening. Of course, would love to hear your views. I know this is not something that no one has ever done before, but this is just an attempt. We are bringing people closer. At least the attempt is towards ensuring that this happens. And then hopefully this sort of becomes a community where, because we are looking at nano communities to start with. So maybe we continue doing all that we like, we continue doing all that we love. And of course, there are things that you have to do because you don't love it at all. But then that's how the laws of the land or maybe the laws of communities are. I mean, you can't do everything that you love, but sometimes you got to do some things which sort of uh, are part of the process. And the moment I say process, I remember MS Dhoni because he keeps saying that it's important. The process is important rather than the results. But of course, the results is what really counts at the end of the day. But if you have a great process, of course, the results will keep coming. And as you've spoken of results, I hope the result of this little small discussion is worthwhile for you. And I hope it inspires you to continue doing what you do well and keep learning from people who are a step ahead of you and stay inspired to be a good person all the way. So, men, women, ladies, gentlemen, thank you for your time, and we'll be meeting soon, hopefully. And this is a good way to connect. Thank you very much. And this is Harry Rockers, or you can call me whatever you like, as long as it has Abhishek, Harry, and Haridasan in a proper manner without really sounding silly. Please do come back. Love to hear from you. You can leave your comments. You can catch me on LinkedIn. You can also catch me on Twitter, Instagram, and it's always wonderful meeting you. Take care and signing off.